Hello and welcome back. We are here for our final segment, and I am joined by Helena Nordstro, Head of Sustainability Strategy and Transformation at Deloitte. We have again Christina Friborg, EVP and Head of Sustainability at SSAB, and David Sonnek, CEO, Navigare Ventures. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the stage. So, Helena, thank you so much for being here. You have a pretty broad background from consultancy, marketing, and strategy advisory. What skill sets from the past have you noticed are most needed in your current client projects?
I love that question, actually, and I wasn't prepared for it. But so I think that we have different types of skills needed in sustainability, and one is the people that have really worked with it for forever and have studied it and have that super in-depth type of competence. I'm more broad, so like you say, I have a background from strategy consulting, from different strategy roles at Ericsson, for example. I've also done many years in climate tech and sustain tech startups. And I have this whole like commercial side and communications and marketing and so on as well. And then the last 7-8 years or so, I focus solely on sustainability. But then I bring in the competence and the experience and so on from previous types of roles. And I think that type of skill set is also needed to be able to leverage those types of insights as well. So, yeah.
Sounds very cool to juggle all of it. Well, David, thank you so much for being here and joining us today. You are looking at this from the venture capital perspective. What is your approach to making sustainable investments?
I think that our focus is to try to find the technological and scientific levers. So what we do, we are financed by the Wallenberg Foundations. We are a part of their asset management. And what we try to do is to bring science more efficiently in solving some of these challenges. Because we have the perception that the technological world is changing. Unfortunately, for the last 20 years, we have been, or even longer, we have been fairly slow in bringing new technology into commercial action. So we try to accelerate that by building small companies that can collaborate with larger or be bought by larger companies. Just accelerating the tech transfer from academia to real world problem solving.
Well, that sounds interesting, and I can't wait to get more into that. Christina, we just met with you, so I'm going to give the first question to you here. So during the day today, we've heard so many excellent achievements, efforts, and guidance to approach sustainability and leverage it to become a vital part of any company DNA. However, to fully execute that, there are still so many hurdles along the way. And in your opinion, which obstacle still slows down the sustainable development in Sweden, and what can be done about it?
I think the structure of the society and our bureaucracy is not ready for the speed of the transformation needed. I think this is the biggest hurdle right now. For us in SSAB, for example, it's a question of getting access to fossil-free electricity, and that in its turn is linked to the fact that the allocation of existing effect has a system which is not transparent and which is not conducive to the highest efficiency right now. So it's not transparent, and it's not done in a way that you allocate existing effect stepwise. You allocate the whole transformation to unknown, since it's not transparent. We don't know who is in that line because the line is not transparent, and you apply for all the effect that you need up until 2050, basically, which means that it's a lot of effect that is built in to the system that will have to be allocated before the next one in line gets it. So instead of doing a stepwise allocation in a transparent way, we have a closed list with too much effect asked for. So that's an example of how our systems are not rigged for the speedy transformation that we need. That's one example. Another example, I'm sure you brought it up here before, is the environmental permit process, which takes forever. I mean, we are up to 10, 12 years in some instances, for example, in our company. And that's, I mean, if we are supposed to be more or less fossil-free in around 2030. That's in 7 years' time. If an environmental permit takes 10 to 12 years, you do the math, it's too slow. And I think we're stuck in structures and systems that are bureaucratically perhaps very secure in that sense. But we need to be innovative also here from a societal perspective and look at how can we manage parallel processes, how can we make this more efficient. If you look at Finland, it's completely different. It's completely different, and it's much faster and much more light-footed, but it's much more agile, I should say.
Do you think that's a system that we should follow in Sweden?
Well, I'm not the one to judge which system is the best for our country, because I'm not skilled enough. I don't have that competence. But from our perspective, we should at least be inspired by our neighbors to see what are they doing that we could do that works for us. But I'm not competent enough to judge.
But I love all the vocabulary that you've had today with courage and what you just said as well. These are great things to say.
Thank you.
David, I'm going to direct this one towards you. We are currently operating in a very uncertain market environment. How do you form the long-term vision when the market is changing constantly?
Well, yeah, that's a perception we might have, but that's an advantage of being a seasoned executive, which is just a fancy way of saying that I'm old. I've been professionally engaged in all of these crises from 87 to 91 to 2000 to 2008. And it's really not, that's not for real. And we are talking so much about the insecure environment and high interest rates, but that's kind of bullshit. Important stuff is people suffering in Gaza or this horrible war in Ukraine. That's important stuff. That's stuff that we should worry about. These market fluctuations. The only thing I think I learned from all these crises is the loss of speed for all these crises, where we worried too much about interest rates and market insecurities and orders by our customers, etc. And it all plays out pretty well in the long run, and only that's boring stuff that boring people worry about, and just keeping the eyes on the ball and trying to. We have all these long-term visions and these great examples, and just not reading the newspapers too often, especially not DI, and it's just a great paper, but
Bam.
It's content is great, but the headlines are crap.
Well, that's a fair point, but it also sounds like sustainability is good business too. I mean, where do you see the connections between sustainability and financial growth?
I think it's obvious that it's if you don't want to run a dying business, this is the central issue we have to and if you want to wind down in a profitable way, you might not care too much about this or just do some greenwashing at the surface. But long-term financially sustainable business involves sustainability as a whole.
And continuing a little bit more on finance, when thinking about financing and scaling your targets, I mean, how much money is required to make a real impact?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's really a lot. But I'm fairly optimistic. I've been involved in an initiative among some of the largest investors, the pension funds and insurance companies in the Nordics. And the landscape is changing. When I started off this my venture capital career almost 25 years ago, clean tech then was difficult to finance. The companies were small, they were sometimes ill-managed because there was no few management skills and few seasoned entrepreneurs. Investments were fairly small. And just 5 or 10 years ago, I would not have guessed that projects like Northvolt or H2 Green Steel or any of that could be financed within the capital markets. And I'm very positively surprised, and I see so much more money being directed to these huge projects. But it will take a humongous amount of money to transform, because all the assets we have, all the stuff that we have that will have to be replaced in some way or the other. That's a huge investment. But I think that we are mustering the strength to do that in a way that just I didn't believe was possible a couple of years ago.
But that's fantastic, because now we have more opportunities coming after seeing the success, right?
Can I add to that?
Yes, of course.
Because there's also the aspect of like the cost of doing nothing, right? So of course there, a lot of money is required to turn this around, but the cost of doing nothing is tenfolds or hundredfolds worse.
Yeah.
And then also going back to about future-proofing your business. How do you actually measure what is investment into sustainability, or simply a logical business choice, right? So it's a bit philosophical as well. But yeah, I agree that it's a lot.
I think we're actually, if I may, we're actually a pretty good concrete example of what you're saying, and especially what you're saying, because for us, obviously, we have to do a lot of investments in the transformation of our company, but also with the blast furnaces, which is the process in steelmaking that we are removing, and this is also where 90% of our CO2 emissions occur. They have to be refurbished every 15 years, and if we don't, then then it's not going to function. We're not going to be able to produce. So our choice is: do we refurbish old technique, or do we put the same investment into, or do we invest in new technology? So this is a little bit to what you were saying, the very concrete example for us in the transformation. We have to make the investment anyway, but which road will we take?
Now, I'm going to jump over to you, Helena. So one good thing about sustainability is it's a holistic matter. Is that you can leverage the ecosystem to accelerate innovation. And instead of doing it all by yourself, you could collaborate with startups and other corporations. And what's your view on that?
Yeah, you were talking about that as well before, the speed of innovation and so on. And this is really my favorite topic. So in a lot of the work I do is related to building bridges between companies along a value chain, or of different types of maturity. So, I mean, you work with startups and scale-ups and so on, and connect them with corporates. So do I. The best thing about sustainability, because sometimes you can get a bit depressed when you read the news, and some things are definitely not moving in the right direction. But a positive thing is that I think that at least 90% of all the companies I work with, they are very, very open to collaboration in sustainability, because you realize that we don't have time to do this alone, and you can't do it. So that's my key message there.
Talking about strategy changes and large transformations, there is such an increased expectation that board members and leaders have ESG fluency. What are your practices in ESG sustainability for leaders? And this can go for everybody, but
ESG fluency for boards. Yeah, so I mean, as an example, we actually did a quick check of some of the biggest Nordic companies, multinationals, a year ago, and this might have changed because the world is changing a lot. But at that time, it was 0 to like 4 of the board members in these companies had some sort of sustainability background. So there is, of course, some sort of thing related to representation, right? You need to have the competence in the board. But then I think that not every board member needs to be super competent in sustainability. You need to understand the business side of sustainability and vice versa. So there's definitely a need for like a general upskilling, I think.
Do either of you have anything to add on that?
Well, I think I agree with you, Helena. I think if I take us as a SSAB then as an example, the corporate strategy is transformation. So the whole board needs to understand our transformation from all perspectives. So if I look at the management team, the executive team, we are many in that team that contribute to the transformation. So the CFO does the financial part of it, and the HR does the competence side of it. I do the overarching sustainability strategy. The technology does the technology side of it, and then the innovation research does the innovation research part of it. It's all sustainability. And it's pretty much the same with the board. They have different competences. They have to understand where these competences land in sustainability in the transformation. And then we also have to understand that our transformation, which is mainly removing 10% of Sweden's CO2 emissions and 7% of Finland's, so that's a huge thing. So that's a climate-related issue. But if you're a different company, if you're a people-intensive company, like a security company or whatever, then you have to understand what sustainability transformation you have to do in that sense. Also, and that is something that the boards need to understand. And then there is this audit committee often who needs to understand the reporting side. And that's technical, and that's where we need to help them. That's a very technical issue.
I'm going to direct this back again towards you, Helena, and then open it up to the rest of the group again, because we've been talking about data a lot today, and that's a really interesting topic of how much data you should disclose. Is there, in your opinion, a need for a balancing act between investor, client, and supply chain trust versus protecting your competitive advantage?
Yeah, there's a balance, and I don't think I have the answer exactly where that balance goes. And like many other questions related to sustainability, it's also, it depends. But for sure, I mean, you build trust by sharing what you do in details and backing that up and so on. But there are definitely places and times where it's sensitive to share too much, because you give away information to competitors, but also, potentially people that you will buy something from and so on. So it's a balancing act.
David, I'd love to hear from you on that.
Well, I think that maybe we sometimes worry too much. The rather few things are really, really sensitive. And just in my experience, openness and transparency does pay. And of course, some ongoing tenders and pricing or tricks in the production process, that of course is core and has to be protected. But I think that we are sometimes a bit paranoid about trade secrets and just articulating what is our competitive advantage and then having that as a starting point is quite all right. And then have transparency as a principle. And
did you have anything to add on that?
I agree with both of you, actually. And I do think that there is, in the new regulations on reporting that are coming, there are some parts of it, some parts of the taxonomy, some parts of the new CSRD, and some parts of the coming regulation on the due diligence that are sensitive, where you can actually calculate backwards. You can calculate margins and stuff, and this is where it becomes sensitive. So there are instances, they're not many, but there are instances, and if you're not careful, you will divulge that. And this is why you need to understand the business and those type of rules, and also in your will and wish to be transparent, data and all of that, you still have to be careful with some of these. Very few.
Sounds like that could also be like a cultural corporate thing, that maybe if more companies were more transparent, it would be easier to start sharing information with each other.
Well, but there are some requirements that could be sensitive from a confidentiality perspective. Mm-hmm. For real. I mean,
absolutely.
Not just a cultural thing, but an economic and financial thing.
Now, as we're wrapping up this segment, this is going to note a little bit on what we were talking about, seeing into the crystal ball. So if you would like to become an industry leader within sustainability in the future, let's say 5 to 10 years, so in the near future, what would that require from you, Helena?
I will be quick because I have a very long answer to that. No, but first of all, what if you're a leader today, what took you here will not keep you here, right? So you need to constantly improve, and what might be a unique selling point today is probably like more compliance or foundational tomorrow, right? And then we can talk about everything related to how broad you need to look at sustainability, all the different topics and how it's integrated into your business and how you communicate it and all those things. But I think the one thing that I really want to push is actually the persons, the people. because we work in sustainability, we work really hard, and people in companies and everything, we need to like be whole as people, because we're not going to be able to drive this if we don't heal inside. And it might sound very fluffy and spiritual, but that's sort of my my key thing. So I think that the leaders of tomorrow, to answer the question, is the ones who actually manage to take care of its people and people all over the planet. So yeah. Very fluffy answer, but I think you get the point. Yeah,
it's
not fluffy.
It's very concrete. Just to add on to that, I've built my career on hiring smart people and letting them do their thing. And right now, a lot of talent is attracted towards the sustainability arena, and that talent needs to just be allowed to do their thing. And so I think that what leaders can do is just let go of some of their fear of losing control, and just unleash all that talent. That take all these issues seriously.
Sounds about right. Well,
it's very simple.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you for being here. I hope you had a great time.
We did.
We'll see you next
Thank you very
time.
much.
Thank you.